The way I put it in the book was like absolute mathematical scarcity achieved by consensus in a sufficiently distributed decentralized network was a discovery rather than an invention. It cannot be discovered again by the same group of people that already know about it, which is like everyone on Earth at this point. Because the very thing discovered was resistance to replicability itself. So Bitcoin is resistance to replicability. It's a paradox because everything in Bitcoin can be copied. It's just text and code and numbers. All of that can be copied, but you cannot copy the people. You cannot copy the network effect of this thing, and you cannot replicate the discovery of resistance to replicability. That's how I view that. Bitcoin is just, at its core, it's just an agreement between people on a fixed set of rules on how to interact with each other. So it's like the rules of chess. If you play by the rules of chess that there's a consensus around, you get to play with any other chess player in the world. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin. Of course, no one is forcing you to do anything, but if you play by the rules that most people are playing by, you get to reap the benefits of that. And the benefits of that is an ever-increasing purchasing power over time. Because you have this absolutely scarce asset that no one can inflate it or even influence it. If Bitcoin is to be changed, everyone in it needs to be agree on that in order for the change to happen. Which means that Bitcoin can only be better, it can never be worse. So it can change, but only for the better. And I think it's a fantastic discovery, and I think it will remove the profit motive from violence on every layer of society. Because when you cannot know how much another person has, and you cannot take it by force because they can keep it in their heads, because there's no difference between knowledge and ownership anymore. Like knowing a Bitcoin private key is owning those Bitcoins. So when you can't know how much another person owns and you can't take it by force, there's no other way of enriching yourself than providing something of value to your fellow man. So you can't extort people or coerce people into paying you. You need to make a voluntary trade with the other person. And I think that is at the core of this, and that is what will change everything, because we've given people a tool to not have to care about what people with guns say is the correct thing to do. Yeah. So I think it's a tool for freedom, for personal freedom, and it changes people for the better. Many Bitcoiners, they say that they want a slow transition rather than a fast one. And I think the complete opposite. And that is because the quicker this goes and the faster we adopt a Bitcoin standard, the more peaceful everyone becomes. Because when we're scared about a violent transition, we're missing the fact that we're victims of war at the moment. We're being stolen from, and our children are being stolen from. Whenever you use a fiat currency, you're stealing from your children. The national debt and the personal debt that you take on in order to win the fiat game, the bill will have to be paid one day, and it's our children that we will be paying for it. You can see that like young people now, they cannot get into the housing market at all because the house prices are so inflated. The house prices are only high because of the money printing. So someone is stealing from everyone and stealing most from our children. So we are fighting a war right now. And the more Bitcoin takes over, the less violence and the less control people who run money printers can have over you. So the quicker that process is, the better off everyone will be, I think. Also because disincentivizes violence. Nation states will not have the tools to be violent against their populations and not be incentivized to be violent against their populations in the same way. And we also remember, everyone in parliament and everyone in working for the state, they can also be orange pill, and they're also potential Bitcoiners, all of them. And if they just grasp this thing, they will realize that system is better for them too. Very few people actually benefit from the current system we're in comparison to how many would benefit from everyone on a Bitcoin system. If you look at blockchain data, you can see that Bitcoin addresses with 1 Bitcoin or less in them are growing in numbers. And Bitcoin addresses with 10,000 Bitcoins or more are shrinking in numbers, which means that there is a redistribution of wealth happening already. And I don't think that's ending at any specific point. When you have, if you have 10,000 Bitcoin, that's probably the largest portion of your total net worth is in Bitcoin. And that comes with a plethora of risks. So you are incentivized to diversify that and buy other assets with those Bitcoin. So there is like an upper limit to what you can be comfortable with owning. And this mechanism in itself, I think that it's redistributing the wealth, and all ships rise with the tide. Some rise faster, but all of them rise. So if someone like Michael Saylor decides to buy a shit ton of Bitcoin, that's good for the little holder. If you have 1 Bitcoin, that's good for you, because that Bitcoin will go up in purchasing power from him doing that. So there's no such thing as people buying Bitcoin being bad for the Bitcoin economy. It's the other way around. Like, the more money that gets poured into Bitcoin, the better off all the Bitcoiners will be. And this is the funny thing with the redistribution of it, is that by doing the exact opposite of what people who claim to be redistributing wealth are doing, we're actually achieving something like a redistribution of wealth. And this is so strange, because it's like the most free market capitalist thing ever, and it's better at redistributing wealth than any socialist system could ever be. And it's paradoxical to some, but if you understand economics, it's not. It's what happens. Bitcoiners are very friendly to each other, because we all want other Bitcoiners to succeed, because we all want Bitcoin to succeed. So in a way, we're pumping our bags, but Bitcoin is for everyone. So this circle of people that are helping each other, it can grow and grow, and it never has to stop. So even post-hyper-Bitcoinization, which is when everyone uses Bitcoin, we're still incentivized to help one another. And the second observation I made is that we have a lower time preference than people in fiat land who use euros or dollars, because since Bitcoins go up in value over time, we're incentivized to save rather than spend. And to me, time preference is a very underrated concept of economics, and it's because when you have a high time preference, that means that you don't have any capital. So if you're robbed of everything you own, you need to find food and shelter to survive, and that's a very, very fearful state to be in. But the more you have, the more you can allow yourself to just think about the future and make more long-term decisions. So I think on the same spectrum as high and low time preference are fear and love. So you're fearful whether you have a high time preference, and you can afford to be more loving if you have a low time preference. And that's another thing that Bitcoin does to the human mind. So we literally become better people by just adopting this thing. And it's kind of mind-blowing, because I've received countless amounts of help from other Bitcoiners, even before like my journey started. Even when I wrote my first book, I got it proofread for free, I got it translated for free, and like people helped me all over, and that's just snowballed as time has moved on, and I've gotten help from animators and designers and web designers and whatnot. And the curious thing is that we hardly ever pay each other, not in fiat, absolutely not in fiat, but not even in Bitcoin. And I started thinking about that, and why is that? That we're just helping each other value for value, and we're not paying each other in Bitcoin. And I realized that's what this thing does to people. It will enable people to just be more friendly to one another. So so it unlocked something within us, really. So the Beatles were right. All you needed was love. They just hadn't found the equation for it yet. So that equation is it looks something like this. This is something that happens in families, within families, and when you're with your very best friends, you hardly ever use money or give each other money for services. You just exchange services voluntarily. And what Bitcoin does, it enlarges that circle. So you're in the same family as every other Bitcoiners, and when you get to know these people, you realize that you can trust them completely. That is the toxic maximalists I'm talking about, and no one else really. But this community of ironclad Bitcoiners that are true, passionate Bitcoiners, they're the best people in the world, or the best people I've met so far. And that's the brilliant thing about this. We have a way to interact, but even not using Bitcoin at all is using Bitcoin. So you're using when you're transacting, you're using when you're hodling, but you're also using it by just talking about it and thinking about it. Like it's all just different aspects of the same wider idea. And I find it endlessly fascinating to think about and to talk about. The point about hyper-Bitcoinization is that there's no clear end point to hyper-Bitcoinization. I mean, it's such a hard point in time to define, because, like, is it when every person on earth owns some Bitcoin? Is it when everyone has some Bitcoin on exchanges, or when they take self-custody? Is it when everyone runs a node? Or is it when all the other fiat currencies don't exist anymore? And like, which point in time are we talking about? Hyper-Bitcoinization is a personal thing first and foremost. So we can do that already, if we want to. Bitcoin is already a nation in that sense. We three here in this room and everyone else at this conference can already exchange goods and services between each other on Bitcoin all the time and do not have to use fiat at all.